Well, you may not know my guest today, but you probably have seen him. He's been on Channel 6 a few times, responding to questions on some of the committees he's been on, philanthropy and resident life. He also drives a big electric vehicle, as you can see, so you probably have seen him in the halls, jumped out of the way. He was elected to the resident council last fall. And thank you very much, Doug Franklin, for coming on Who's Who today.
Thank you very much, Gray.
And tell us about your family, your children, your grandchildren. Where are they? What do they do?
Well, I'm very lucky. In fact, one of the reasons we're here still in Virginia after I retired from the military and DOD was that our three daughters, we are very lucky. We have three daughters who married three nice guys, thank goodness, and we're very fortunate. I have two grandchildren that are now teachers in the public school system, and I'm so proud of them. Teaching has always been a area that I think we all need to have a lot of respect for, and they have the two oldest ones. My eldest grandson married a great teacher. She teaches as well. And so out of that, I have three teachers. And that makes my wife and I tickled to death that we have them in the family. They enjoy teaching. Their eyes sparkle when they talk about teaching. And you just can't beat that kind of teacher, I don't think. So I have out of that group, the eldest grandson and his wife, another teacher, they have our first great-grandson, and we are very excited about that.
How old is he?
He is 8 months.
8 months, okay.
And he was born in April of last year. And what's interesting about it is my birthday was less than a week ago, and we had a get-together. My wife arranged a get-together here at Green Springs, and we had great food, and I got to hold the little guy for the first time. And it was the greatest feeling to think that I'm holding another
great-grandson.
A great-grandson for another decade. And he had motion, action and motion. So I forgot, to be honest with you, how much action a little guy really has. But then I have two grandsons that are from my middle daughter, and they are active and finishing out, well, just starting high school. And so I'm lucky to be blessed with four grandsons, three daughters, three son-in-laws who are great guys, and my wife and I feel very blessed.
Okay, well, what about now your parents, where you grew up?
Well, my wife and I both grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska. And
so you're Midwesterners.
We're Midwesterners.
Not with the corn.
Yeah, we get kind of corny, I guess, at times. But that's me. But it's been great. We like Nebraska. We grew up there in both my wife and I had great homes and great schools. We were able to get into public schools, but just great. And they bring back good memories for my wife and I. When we enjoy being with. We are co-chairman of the Friends of Nebraska group here at Green Springs.
Good.
And we took it over from Hal Langford and Ann Whitmer, I believe, and was her name. And they started this club about 8 years ago now. And Hal wanted to retire and asked if we would take it over. We thought it over for a day or so and said, sure, we'll give it a shot. Yeah. And so we enjoy it, and we have speakers and things like that. So it's been a very interesting thing. We're proud of Nebraska, and we're proud of where we grew up and what we did.
Do you have any good stories from high school? Were you in sports?
Well, I was in all the plays I could get in, and the drama.
So you were an actor, huh?
I was. I guess a lot of people say, yeah, he still does that. But
Are you in the players here?
No, I'm not in the players here. And I got involved in some committees and all that kind of filled that time up. Yeah. But as you know from all your volunteer work, you know what it's like. But it's been enjoyable, and I think that's one reason we're happy now at Green Springs, because there's so many things to do.
Well, we were talking about though your high school. Do you have any good story from high school that you?
Well, all I can tell you is I was terrible in the high jump. I always landed before I was supposed to. I ended up being taken out of field things and changed into a runner. And so I participated, believe it or not, my slim 155 pounds.
I remember those days too.
But I was a runner. I ran cross country in track, and I ran the mile in track. And I look back on those days, I can't believe I did that part. So, but that's it. So, and the best thing I could tell you is I was lousy at field. I was never that fast in running, and it was a lot of time having to go out after class, after school was dismissed, to be running on the track. Yeah. And I'll tell you, after you've been around 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, that's way too many. So I've taken leave of running, and I wish I could do more of that now.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I tried.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
I saw this little kid scotching the other day going to church, and his parents were watching. I says, I used to run like that too.
Well, it was. We had a good time. I lived close enough to my elementary school I could walk to school.
Oh, good.
And we had one really lucky thing for me. Now looking back at it, we had one enormous snowball fight after school. My house where we lived was right on the main track going away from the school. And we had a snowball fight that covered 3 or 4 front yards that were all in a row. And we had one broken window from it. We all ended up in the principal's office the next morning, because that was a no-no because of the worried about ice in snowballs.
So that was the end of the snowball fight.
That was a snowball fight, yes.
Yeah.
My parents said, there will be no more snowballing on our front yard. And they were serious about that, and that's the end of my snowballing.
All right, you went to college then in Lincoln also.
Right, went to the University of Nebraska.
Did you walk to college? Were you able to live at home, or did you have to go to the
No, my wife and I, we got married in our sophomore year.
Sophomore year?
Sophomore year, and at the end of sophomore year, but it was sophomore year, and I was in advanced ROTC at the Air Force ROTC at Nebraska. And we found an apartment that was about a mile from school. Oh. And several times when the weather was really crummy, and I didn't want to take our old Ford Falcon out because I was afraid another drop of rust on it would be the end of it. So anyway, we would walk to school, and I remember being picked up by the chairman of the mathematics department, offering us a ride when the weather was so bad. Oh. So we were going down to school, and he said, "Can I give you a lift?" And I looked and saw who it was, and I thought, couldn't be a better person to ride with. So.
How large is the University of Nebraska at Lincoln?
It has grown considerably, because they've absorbed, in the total figures, the University used to be University of Omaha, and that was in Omaha, Nebraska, and they brought that into the University of Nebraska realm, and so it's grown by about 10,000.
How large was it then?
It was, when we were going, I think it was about, I want to say about 110,000.
Not the town. The college.
The college, I think we had about 30,000 students.
30,000?
Yeah,
oh,
it was pretty big.
Yeah.
And college.
I just wondered, because you said the math instructor would pick you up. Did you know him or something?
I knew him from one of his classes.
Oh, okay.
I'm afraid I'm one of the people he wishes he could forget, because I was a problem in math, and it was very hard. And that was one reason I got out of the medical. I was in pre-med.
Ah, okay.
And that was one of the reasons between mathematics and chemistry classes, they were killing me. So, I mean, literally.
So you were in the Air Force ROTC.
Correct.
You were from the beginning of school?
For me, I had to be, because we were a land grant college at Nebraska, you had to participate in 2 years of ROTC. It was called the basic side. And
so that was the first 2 years?
First 2 years,
okay.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
And so from the first 2 years, I enjoyed it, and I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. I thought I wanted to be a pilot. I always wanted to be a pilot.
Why?
But
Why did you always want to be a pilot?
I just enjoyed seeing planes fly.
Yeah.
And I used to build plastic model planes. I had them lining around all 4 sides of my family room we had. And I every time I'd build a plastic model, my dad said, "Put it on the wall," and that's what I did. I had all the walls were covered with plastic model airplanes.
I built flying models during World War II of about 30-some different Air Force airplanes.
Oh, wow.
Or Army Air Corps. And I had them all suspended from the ceiling.
Oh.
And I flew a few of them, but not very many, because you usually broke something, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were really interested in the Air Force.
I was.
Yeah.
I was interested in flying. I had an uncle who was a pilot in the Korean War, and I just always wanted to be a pilot and fly an airplane. Well, my eyes gave way before my pilot came about, so I get accepted in the Air Force pilot program. I didn't have the eyes for the navigator program, so I was pretty much washed out of the flying part of the Air Force.
Yeah.
But I had a good career, and I went into the advanced cadets, and my last 2 years, my junior and senior year at Nebraska, I was in the advanced program at Nebraska, and we had a good time. I have some good friends from there that we still communicate with, and it's been very, very good time from basic cadet, which many people hated the marching and everything we had to do, to the advanced when we graduated in ROTC, and I was commissioned when I on graduation night, and I was very glad I did that.
Yeah. So you didn't have any job in the civilian world after college. You went directly into the Air Force.
I went directly from
as a second lieutenant.
Second Louis, yep.
And what was your branch, or what was your?
I was in the Air Force Office of Special Investigations.
Okay. From the very beginning.
From the very beginning, I was one of the few people that actually remember having an AFOSI nominee come from the senior class for graduation. So I felt kind of honored, to be honest with you, because it was a very difficult program to get into and to get accepted into, and I did that for 20 years in the Air Force.
Well, now, just what is the Office of Special Investigation?
The Office of Special Investigation, you are, just picture what your knowledge or your understanding of what the FBI does.
Yeah.
We were responsible for basically those same, in the criminal area, in the fraud area, in the personnel investigations for clearances, whatever they did, we did in the Air Force for the Air Force people.
Okay.
And that's where the line was drawn. They had jurisdiction, broader jurisdiction than we had. We were primarily directed at the Air Force mission. And
so if you had a problem in the Air Force with somebody stealing something, or you suspect that somebody is taking supplies and so forth, and trying to sell them outside or something like that.
Right.
Is that what we're talking about?
That's exactly right. And also in the early days, we were responsible, before the Defense Investigative Service was founded, we were responsible for doing all the background investigations for anybody in the Air Force that had a clearance. And so it was up to OSI to clear them.
But now there's another organization that does everything. Yeah.
Defense Investigative Service was given the mission of doing background investigations for all 3 services. Yeah. So that was taken out of the 3 services area responsibility and programmed into the Defense Investigative Service, DIS.
Yeah. Okay. So you spent your 21 years, was it?
21 years.
In the OSI, Office of Special Investigations.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the same thing in the Army.
Right.
Yeah, and I presume the Navy had the same
They have
thing.
they have the ones on
NCIS.
TV.
Yeah, that's right, NCIS. And,
NCIS, that's right.
and our friend Jiggs Keller, I think, was in the NCIS.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have any stories that you can tell us from the Special Investigations?
Well, I remember being thrown into the summer ROTC program at Webb Air Force Base, where I got to serve a year. I mean,
now this was before you came into the Air Force.
This before I was commissioned in the Air Force, and I was in Air Force Advanced ROTC, and there's a requirement for 1 month training program in the summer between your sophomore and your between your junior and your senior year, and you have to attend a summer camp, and it is start with the marching in, starting with their order taking in, starting with making square corners on your mattress and your bed, all the crazy stuff you hear about. That all happened.
You don't think that's important, huh?
Well, it was. I don't think I have to make beds anymore. My wife would probably argue that I should be making the beds.
I see. Okay.
But I do remember one in the summer school. It was over the 4th of July, and the commissioned Air Force people that were running the program, they decided we would have a homegrown 4th of July with all the games and all the things, the contests that you could think of. And I remember one of them was the egg toss. And don't ask me how I remember that, other than the fact I was covered in egg
that weren't cooked.
That weren't cooked. Somebody had swapped out, and I think it was probably the guys that were graduating as senior cadets. I think they got into the eggs because they turned out to be uncooked eggs. And
I thought that was always uncooked eggs.
Well, they're supposed to be hard-boiled,
I
right?
see.
And we were all
that
covered.
takes all the fun out of it.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a lot of use of washing in the showers that afternoon.
Yeah. But I thought maybe there might be an interesting case that you could.
I worked cases that involved people being applied for a background investigation, and I can't tell you how many cases I was part of, because we were delegated a portion of a case depending upon geographical limitations. I was assigned to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, just outside East St. Louis, and I was part of the team that investigated Air Force cases in the southern part of Illinois. And you're assigned a case by the commander of the detachment or the district office, and then you were given a car, and you're literally given your marching orders as far as what case they needed, what they needed done, whether they needed a interview of a teacher that had taught a person looking for a background investigation, usually at the secret and above level, and you never knew what you were going to be doing. I chased people on campuses that you never know existed, and one of my cases involved the Philippines. I was assigned to the Manila to that detachment for investigative purposes, and we had Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines that was active, and I was assigned to Manila, which at the embassy. Yeah. And we had a case one time that required us to go into it was now a university, Santo Tomas, and that university had been turned during World War II into a prisoner of war camp for American female prisoners that were captured by the Japanese. And that was interesting to me as a on-the-cuff history person, because between the Citadel, which was inside Manila, which had been used, and then the universities and places like that. It was an interesting assignment.
Yeah.
And one time when I was in Santo Tomas running investigative leads, to think that I was in the same place where there had been, I went to Corregidor, probably my wife would say too many times. She says I have a picture of every rock on Corregidor, and she's probably right, actually. Yeah. So it was interesting to think that Douglas MacArthur, I was named after him. My dad liked him very much, and when he was coming to the prominence, I was being born. Yeah. So he liked the name Douglas, and I ended up with that as my middle name, but that's the name I use now, is Doug. Yeah. So that was to think where he was walking on in his early years of the World War II, I was now walking on.
Yeah. Well, did you have any other foreign assignments?
Yes, I was assigned to Utapao, Thailand, and that's on the bay side of Thailand. It was a Royal Navy air base, and we were responsible again for the Air Force side of that house, and that was very interesting. And my wife was not able to go to Thailand with me because it was a remote assignment. Yeah. So I was there for a year on my own with the detachment going. I was a detachment commander at the time, and trying to learn new language, trying to learn the area geographically, and trying to understand and live with the people that were there. And I made some good friends with the Thai investigative side of their house, and that was always very, very interesting. And again, we were responsible for the criminal side, the fraudulent side, with the personal investigation side, running leads, and also for liaison purposes between the Thai investigative units that were working our area.
Well, when we talked about the OS side, we talked about fraud and so forth, but we didn't mention criminal. Now, did you get involved in any criminal cases? Suppose an airman murdered his wife, or at least suspected of murdering his wife. Would you get involved in that kind of investigation?
We probably would at the beginning, and if it progressed to the serious side, and what I mean by serious, a murder is very serious, but if it gets into a very complicated investigation on the local base, and it has probably investigative leads back in the States, that would be transferred generally to the FBI.
Yeah, okay.
And before that, we would run it. If it was a case of let's say an airman or an officer abusing their spouse, or taking something from the government inventory that they shouldn't have had, that would be referred to us, to OSI.
Okay. So you retired then from the Air Force after 21 years, and I presume you were back here in the Washington area when you retired?
Yes, I was. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to be hired by my military boss, who had gone civilian, and he wanted me to be in the investigative side of the Defense Investigative Service. Pardon me.
That's part of DIA.
Defense Intelligence Agency, which was a separate outfit charged with our big time stuff of what's happening in the counterintelligence end of it. And so I was also part of that. That was a third kind of triad of the OSI mission, was counterintelligence.
So you got involved in counterintelligence.
Yes, I did.
In the DIA.
Right.
Well, I guess we can't really talk too much about
Not too much about that one.
All right, Doug. Well, we're getting down to the serious time now. 3 minutes left.
3 minutes.
And let's talk about coming to Green Spring. What brought you to Green Spring?
My wife, being very honest with you.
Now, how long have you been here?
We've been here a little over 4 years now. And
so Beverly.
Beverly is my wife, yes. And we've been married over I think she would tell me, she'll probably correct me when I get home. I think we've been married 56 years.
56 years.
And we got married in college. We got married in the summer, late summer of our sophomore year.
Yeah.
And
You don't remember the year then?
Yeah, 1962.
62, okay.
I sure do.
Pretty sure of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty darn sure of that one. But Bev was able to go with me to the Philippines, and we enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about getting into Green Spring.
Okay, get into Green Spring. Sorry there, Greg. I get carried away. We got here, Bev was looking further out than I was looking.
Okay.
I was very happy with our large bedroom house, 4-bedroom house, and all the space we had.
Yeah.
And she started talking downsizing.
Yeah.
And she was smart. She opened up her ears and listened to our neighbors and fellow friends and her friends in a bridge group and all that, where they had been looking for places, and Green Springs' name came up.
Well, how long have you been in the chair?
I've been in the chair since 1995.
Oh, so you've been using a chair for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of important. You talked about a big house. Did you have a chairlift?
I did.
So,
It wasn't a chairlift in those days. It was just a chair stairs.
Yeah, that's what I mean, chair stairs.
Chairs, and it was important to get up into our second floor.
Okay.
And Bev knew I needed help.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons she thought you ought to come to Green Spring.
Right.
Okay.
And since we've been here, the Green Springs has worked itself right into our daily living. Mm-hmm. You can see I'm in the chair. Green Springs lends itself to helping people that have to have assistance in a chair or stairs or whatever, to be accommodated here.
Yeah.
And that has helped awful lot.
Yeah.
And once we got here, anybody that says coming to Green Springs you get bored I have an exception with, because we have over 225 groups to participate in that want you to be part of them, and you name it, it's probably here.
Yeah.
We have our own American Legion post, Greg.
Yeah. Even Friends in Nebraska.
Yeah, that's right, Friends in Nebraska. Beverly and I are co-chairmen of that one.
And the important thing there is that your friend who started it, decided that, hey, it would be nice to have an activity for all the new Nebraskans.
That's right.
And so he started it himself. It wasn't here then.
No, it wasn't here.
Okay, Doug, well, we're out of time.
Well, I could go on.
I bet we could go on for another hour, maybe 2 hours, couldn't we?
We probably save the people from boredom, however.
But
I'll be quiet.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming on.
My pleasure,
today.
Ray. I really appreciate talking with you.
And so again, good luck, because on the resident council.
Well, I appreciate it.
You're the liaison to the medical
center and Garden Ridge.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And I take that very seriously. And
and you had a great predecessor in Peggy
sure
Patterson. And,
oh yeah, she did so much to get things going between Garden Ridge and medical center, and I'm very happy that I get to follow in her footsteps. Yeah. And I encourage everyone, get involved. There's something here for you to do, and being part of it is a secret.
Okay, well, thank you very much.